Welcome to Alcohol and Anime Night, the show that gets you drunker, the show that gets you fatter, and the show that's like a pusher, but for anime. Welcome back to Alcohol and Anime Night. My name is Scott, and tonight we have a very special show. Imagine that you're talking to a regular, normal, well-adjusted person, and they come to the point in the conversation where they want you to recommend an anime to them. Now, you are at a point where you can recommend something amazing to them that will get them into this incredibly immersive, artistic world and possibly ruin their lives. But either way, you might have the chance to have a fellow ally in this community. Now, what do you recommend? And this is the question that comes up from time to time. Now, when people ask me about anime, very often it comes up to three categories. It's either going to be Pokemon, Dragon Ball Z, or hentai. Those are the three things that typical people know, and those are very drastically different things. And so when you recommend a show to someone, you really have to put aside your own tastes and really think about someone at large and the average normal person who might not have context for some of the things. And it's very interesting because you will have certain cultural differences between American and Japanese media that might be too drastic for some people. You have to think about music. You have to think about how long is this? Is it too lengthy to get somebody involved? What about the dubbing? Are some people unwilling to read the subtitles? Maybe they want a really good dub. So you're going to need to take that into consideration. And not to mention, you don't want to scare someone off with something that may be just a little bit too, well, anime. On top of all of that, one of the other big considerations that you have to think of is how easy is this to consume? Back in my day, everything was difficult to consume, and you had to either rent it at a video store or buy it at a videotape store. It was very difficult to get to. We live in a beautiful world now where there's multiple streaming services, both legitimate and non-legitimate, and the ability to access some of these things is quite easy. But you don't want to send somebody into some kind of shady website or perhaps have to sign up for a service that they might not already have. So I've taken that into consideration as well. One of the other things that I considered was that when viewing an anime and being part of the community, one of the fun things is kind of being part of the in-group and knowing some of those in-jokes and some of those memes. And there are certain anime that will actually kind of unlock that for you, and you'll suddenly be like, oh yeah, I get that joke now. So that's another thing to think of, as well as what about OVAs, shorter things, movies, versus a 100+ seasons. So is that good or is it bad? There's a lot to consider. So I want you to know I've considered all of these things, but I also brought in another expert because while I am going to set aside my own degenerate tastes, I really wanted to get another person involved. While I'm going to give you my list, I'm also going to get a little bit of help. I'm going to let him go first, so Derek, take it away.
Hey Scott, thanks for having me. So, 3 anime to get someone into anime itself. Let's start off with a very easy entry-level one. I think we should go with Demon Slayer. It has a very good story, great animation, and also a killer soundtrack.
Thank you very much, Derek. I am going to go with one that actually recently won Anime of the Year. It's available on Netflix. It's got a banging soundtrack. It has a video game that has been played by millions of people. That is Cyberpunk Edgerunners. And I think it should be no surprise that I loved this show. It's only 10 episodes. It's on Netflix. It's very accessible. It's done by Studio Trigger, which is amazing. It just looks great. It sounds great. The voice acting on both the sub and the dub are great. And I really think for the most part, it's going to give you that anime feel, but it's not going to be too out there where it's going to alienate anybody.
For number 2, I think we're going to go in a different direction a little bit. We're going with an anime movie, and that is Your Name. Also a very, very compelling story, a little bit of mystery mixed in and romance, but it's a very fun one, and it shouldn't take up too much time, so should just get someone, just get them excited enough.
So for mine, I'm going to go for a movie as well. I'm going to go with the great Miyazaki's Princess Mononoke, Mononoke Hime. This is an incredible film with amazing American celebrity voice actors that you can watch, and you won't even know that there is a Japanese dub if you didn't know any better. But of course the subtitled version is great, and it has an incredible soundtrack, just that big movie soundtrack. There's a lot of action, it's got characters that you care about, it's got an interesting plot, and it's fairly accessible, fairly easy to get to.
And for the third and final one, I have to go with One Piece. Maybe don't start them off with like the original One Piece. Maybe wait for the Studio Wit one to kind of ease them into that. I'm pretty sure that's what the remake is for. So it's probably going to gather a whole bunch of new fans and old existing fans. So that'd probably be the best time for it. Otherwise, over 1,000 episodes, like one episode a day, you'd be watching for like 3 years. Yeah.
All right, well, before we get to my final recommendation, I did want to give some honorable mentions, and the first of which might be pretty obvious. It was very close to making it onto this list, and that is, of course, Evangelion. Now, I will recommend not only the original series, but the more recent rebuilds that have incredible visuals, incredible soundtracks. It's all been redone. I think you can watch all of them on Amazon now, so that's incredible. But didn't make the list, but boy, is that an honorable mention. Again, one of my personal favorites, but could I recommend it to another person? I think it's a little too heavy and depressing, maybe. I don't know, but it didn't make the list, but it was close. The second one is Freyren. It is such an amazing show. It's a recent show, so if you watched it, you would really feel like you were like in the zeitgeist. There's a lot of memes and stuff about it. It's funny, it's an adventure, it's got a lot of emotion, but I'm not sure. It doesn't have, there's not 2 seasons yet, so I'm not sure if I really wanted to get into that. It's so good though. And the last honorable mention was a show called Call of the Night, which again, I really, really enjoyed. I think the average person would really like the whole vampire aspect of it. It's very beautifully done. The only issue I have is that, again, there wasn't 2 seasons, so there's not, even if you loved it, there's not any more to consume than that first season. So I had to throw that one out. And My Neighbor Totoro almost made it as well, but it's probably just a little too cutesy for most people, unless they have young kids. So without further ado, my final recommendation, and this one I really had to think about it, it's Konosuba. And this might shock a lot of people. I think Konosuba is a great introduction to anime for somebody for these reasons. Number one, it's really funny. And so comedy is just kind of a universal language for people. And if you are not familiar with the concept of isekai, it's probably one of the best done isekais arguably out there. Probably one of the top 3 in my opinion. And there's 3 seasons. The most current season, of course, that just got done running. And of course, there's a spin-off season with Megumin's character. Not to mention, I think there's 2 OVAs as well. So there's plenty of content. And you are guaranteed to find a character in this series that either you relate to, that you find funny, or that you just can't wait to see on screen. So Konosuba, that's an all-timer right there. So once again, I wanted to give a huge thank you to Derek from DTTC Reviews. Check him out. He has really good production value. He unboxes a lot of these incredibly expensive, beautiful statues and figurines that I could only dream of. He makes you want to buy all this stuff. So keep your wallet tight when you're watching his videos, because you're going to want to spend $400 on some of this stuff straight away. So if you also remember, he also made these incredible Pokemon pins and stickers, so check out his Etsy store as well. We did a short on it. I'll try and link it somewhere around there. But until next time, my name was Scott. Kampai.